Welcome back to School for Startups Radio. Hope you're having a great day. I hope today is the day you go and start a business and change your life forever. My next guest is someone that I am very interested to get to know better and to find out more about their work. His name is Tali Raphaely, and he has just written a new book called The Complete Guide on How to Negotiate. Master the art of getting what you want in business and in life. It's gotten some really good reviews, 5 stars on Amazon, and it's been selling well. Tali is also a speaker and an attorney, and so I'm very fascinated to learn all that he's doing. Tali, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good, Jim. Thank you very much. Good to be here with you.
Well, I appreciate your time. You are a fascinating person. It seems like you do a lot of stuff, and I guess your experience with negotiation started off as an attorney. Normally, we don't have attorneys on the show because we consider you just, an attorney. And so I'm glad that you can laugh at that and that you've moved some out of that profession a little bit because uh, us entrepreneurs got to learn some other skill sets. So we appreciate what you're doing. I remember taking a class in graduate school on how to negotiate, and in the end, we all figured out that everyone could win, and that was always the exercises. But I haven't found that to be true in real life. Not everyone wins all the time. Tali, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jim. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here with you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to get to speak about the book and just about my thoughts about the whole subject.
Talk to us about
Thank you very much.
negotiation. Can it be win-win-win?
Absolutely. I think it has to be win-win-win. And it's very easy to actually have that atmosphere in a negotiation. I think it's the biggest problem is people see it has to be a conflict. It has to be a win-lose. It's two parties pitted against each other. And people have a tough time with that because people also always want to be liked. So, and you don't want to come off as a bad person. So you've got that conflict right there where you have to be a tough guy and you want to get a good deal and you feel like you're in a conflict, but yet you don't want to be disliked. You want to be liked and you want to be respected. And that's I think the biggest problem with negotiating, and people are just intimidated by the whole process.
Well, it can be very scary, and you think about, where average everyday people negotiate. It's pretty rare. The average person buys a house, buys a car every 5 to 7 years. That's negotiations, but that's about it. So only us entrepreneurs or the job seekers or then, the super moguls are doing a lot of negotiations, I guess. And of course, you attorneys. But, even, and I loved this too, the fact that, your book mentions just in life too, how you can use better negotiation just in life in general, just to not have disagreements with your next door neighbor or the homeowners association, right?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, Jim. The basic principle is really seeing things from other people's perspective and not from your own. So if you have a conflict with, say, a neighbor, it could be about anything. It could be a tree that's in the middle of both your yards, maybe. Who knows? If you only see it from your point of view, you're never going to get what you want. You're never going to have cooperation, and you're just going to be upset and angry about the whole situation. If you do your best to see things from other person's point of view, that's when you can really foster cooperation, and that's when everybody can be happy. You can understand that maybe the person, maybe it's an ego thing. So if you figure out how to deal with the person's ego, everything's okay. Maybe it's not always what you think it is. And a lot of people just assume this is what that person wants. But if you really listen to the person and understand their wants, their needs, their fears, their concerns, before you know it, you can really see things from their point of view. And then you realize, oh, that's why you didn't want to do this, or that's why you wanted me to do that. Now I understand. So it really, and before you know it, everybody gets what they want because both parties have actually listened to each other. Negotiation really, it goes on throughout everybody's life all day, and people just don't realize it. It really comes down to the people skills, and really how you deal with people, how you listen, how you respect others, and when you do those things, it just comes naturally to have the cooperation and to just have people get along and still have and certainly get what you want. It's just a whole different atmosphere when you see things like that.
You must have failed out of attorney school.
Thank you.
Because you're
Thank you, I
not
guess.
talking, yeah, because you're talking like a sane person, and I appreciate, Tali,
Well,
that you're like letting me make fun of you and your attorneyness. I appreciate that very much. That's a good sport of you. Um,
absolutely.
you're right. you're right. I look at my kids, they're negotiating on who's going to go swim first, who's going to water ski first, who gets the good bed. They're negotiating all the time. And so many times though, I try to look at it from the viewpoint of others, but then I realize that person's just crazy. You know, what do you do then? What if you get into the other person's shoes and you say, okay, let's talk about the reasons that they want to cut down my favorite tree? And you come to understand that they're just mean. Am I wrong? Or is this sometimes the result? What do you think?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. Well, here's what happens when you sometimes you realize this person's just me, but then if you give people the benefit of the doubt and you say, you know what, this person doesn't want to be me, and this person doesn't want to be disliked. This person just is doing the best they can. Who knows what they're going through? I mean, they could have just found out the worst news about somebody in their family that morning. They could be going through some severe depression, financial issues we don't know anything about. So you never know what's going on in somebody else's life, and it's really hard for you to judge. So what you do instead is you just say to yourself, you know what, they're being unreasonable, but they're doing the best they can. They don't want to be this way. So how can I work around this? You have to deal with the facts. You
Yep.
can't get upset and you can't get emotional and start getting upset about the fact that they're not being reasonable. You have to say, okay, I've done the best I can to try to get this person to try to understand this person and try to get them to reason with me. They're not doing so. The facts of the matter are this is what it is. This is what I have to deal with. How can I still get around this? And certainly don't take it personally. I think that's the biggest problem. People start taking things personally, whether whether you feel like the other person is being unreasonable, whether they're being insulting, whether they're just not giving you the answers that you want. People start getting upset, and their ego gets involved, and you have to stop that from happening. And how do you do that? By just really giving the other person the benefit of the doubt, no matter what they do. I mean, obviously to a certain extent, but no matter what they do, and just say, they're doing the best they can. They don't want to be coming across this way. They must feel really strongly about this. Let's find out why. And you take a step back and you try to get that collaboration going. You try to get that sense of, hey, we're still in this together. Let's figure this out. Before you know it, people will let off a little bit, and all of a sudden you start feeling a difference in how things are going between the two parties. Once you show the person that, hey, I'm not trying to have any conflict with you. Let's just really work this out. How can we make this happen? So a lot of times you have to ask a lot of questions too to really dig deep and find out why this person feels this way. Why do they feel so strongly? Maybe there's a sentimental value to it. There's a sentimental reason to what they're doing. If so, it's really tough to get around that. So how do you then satisfy their sentimental value, their sentimental wants and needs, yet still make sure that you get what you want and they still get what they want? So a lot of times it's digging deep and finding out why they're being unreasonable as well.
Yeah. Maybe his wife planted that tree and then she died underneath it or something, And so you're right. There's things that we might not understand.
You never know.
You mentioned earlier being scared of negotiations. Why are people so afraid to do this?
Well, first, I think there's a couple reasons for that. I think number one, people don't want to be taken advantage of. I think that's the main thing. Let's use a car dealership as an example. People walk into a car dealership. They already have this feeling that they're just going to get taken advantage of. They're not going to understand what's going on, and people don't like that feeling. Certainly, you want to feel smart. You want to feel like you know what you're doing. So automatically, when you feel like the levels of understanding are not even, there's an intimidation factor right away. And so you're going to be tense and you're going to be on guard from the very beginning, and you see it as a conflict. How can I protect myself against these bad people who are going to try to take advantage of me? So that's the first part. And then the second part is, like I said before, where people want to be liked. They don't want to be looked at as a bad person, unreasonable person. People think that if you're standing up for yourself, that means that people aren't going to like you, and that's not true at all. If you stand up for yourself in a respectful way, and you're nice and you're polite and you're likable, you're not going to be looked at as a bad person, or you're not going to be disliked because you're just standing up for yourself in that nice way. It's just how you say things a lot of times. So if you just make it clear, like, hey, I'm just trying to get the best deal here for everybody. I want to make sure everybody's happy, and I want to make sure that we all get our voices heard here. But at the end of the day, I'm a nice guy, and I just want to make sure that we all get the results we want and move on from there. So I think a lot of times I think it's a twofold problem. It's the intimidation factor of sometimes feeling like, hey, what am I getting myself into here? I'm going to get a bad deal. And then number two is I want to be liked. So how can I be tough and be liked at the same time? I think that's where the problem stems.
Right. Gosh, buying a new car just it makes me mad just sitting here thinking about it because I've seen in the movies where the salesman says, "Well, let me go talk to my boss," and they go next door and get a new Coke, and then they just blow off 5 or 6 minutes talking to their buddy, and then they come back and said, "Well, the boss said this." It just feels like it's gamed to your disservice and to your disadvantage from the very beginning. And then I started thinking about politics, Tali. I agree with you. I think that if you talk long enough, you should be able to work out almost any problem. Well, then why in the hell do the smartest people in the world, the ones we elect to represent us, how come they can't negotiate? And when we hear negotiations happening in Washington, we hear comments like nuclear option and off the cliff. And it seems to me like the people who I and you have trusted to negotiate for us are the worst in the world.
Well, because they're certainly not seeing things from other person's perspective or other party's perspective. They're only seeing things from their own perspective, and that's what happens. And what ends up happening is they've created an atmosphere of conflict, for sure. Even though they try to say that they haven't, it's usually what happens. They stand their ground, and they really don't do a good job of cooperating with the other side and seeing where the other side is coming from. They believe that they have their constituents from their side. They believe that they have no choice but to stand for certain things. And as soon as that gets affected, they get angry and they don't want to give in. And that's so with politics. It's a lot different because these politicians, they have what they think is their are the things that they have to do, the goals they have to accomplish, the platform that they have to stand by. And I think with that type of atmosphere and that type of background, it becomes a little tougher to have a win-win. Thank God for you and I and the average person, we don't have those pressures to deal with. So it does make it a lot easier. It's easier for us to see where the other side is coming from, what they really, when they talk, you really understand what they really need as you get to know the person and you ask a lot of questions. When they tell you they need something, you ask why. And you just keep asking why and why and why. Then you find out the real reasons. And it goes back to what you said with the tree. Oh, that's why, because your wife, who's deceased, she planted that tree. Okay, that makes sense. And then, and obviously the rest of what you said about that tree. But so when you find out more and more about why the person wants what you do, it gives you a better sense as to how strongly they feel about it and how maybe you can still get them what they want without necessarily giving them what they thought that they wanted. You end up giving them what they need. And you do that by really listening and by understanding where they're coming from. So with the politicians, it's a lot different for sure. But for the rest of us, the good news is we don't have those constraints. So it's a lot easier for us to really end up with a win-win when we negotiate.
Yeah, I believe so strongly if we were to pick a president, 100 senators, and 435 representatives of the House out of the phone book and sent them to Washington, that we would be in better shape as a country because those people would go up there and just do stuff and not be so
Well,
crazy.
I don't know. I think maybe a lot of people go into these positions with good intentions, and I think what ends up happening is they have constituents and they have groups who are behind them and supporting them, etc. And before you know it, I think they just they have to deal with these pressures. But
Sure.
again, for us and the average person, life is a lot easier. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, Tali. A lot of what I am hearing can be summarized as just be a good Christian and turn the other cheek, or just if we wanted to use new age terms, we could say just be an emotionally intelligent person and never let your emotions take over. And is that summarizing your book well? How did I do?
I think it's a very good summary, Jim. I really do. I think it's really just about understanding other people and not getting so stuck on your own position because you're negotiating with somebody else. You're not negotiating with yourself. If you want to negotiate with yourself, then fine, you can do that. But when other people are involved, you've got to understand other people. You've got to be able to get along with other people. And how do you do that? You do that by beginning from the very beginning, starting an atmosphere of, hey, let's cooperate. This isn't a conflict. Let's work this out together. We're in this together. And let's make sure this works out. And also, Jim, by the way, it really helps when you're trying to you're trying to get something you don't think you're going to be able to get, and you do what what we would call as a bluff. Maybe you ask for a bit more than you really wanted, but or maybe you're basically just bluffing. And what ends up happening is obviously you're taking a risk because if you're asking for too much, other side may want to walk away. But if you've basically built up this whole atmosphere of collaboration, then at the end of the day, it's very easy for you to take away your bluff and say, hey, you know what? I shouldn't. That was too much. Or hey, let's still work this out because we've come so far together. We've gone through so much together with all these talks we've had. Let's not let this just go by the wayside. Let's figure this out. And you notice, Jim, when I say that, you come back and you don't say, hey, I'm going to give in to you. You just basically say, hey, let's open the talks again because we've come so far. Let's not give up. So once you've created that atmosphere, it just makes everything else so much easier.
Yeah. You're from Miami, right, Tali?
I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and now I spend most of my time in Miami, although I still spend time in Baltimore as well.
And you do real estate in Miami?
Yes, I own a nationwide real estate title company. It's called Armor Settlement Services. We do nationwide title work. We've got offices in Miami, and we have an office in Baltimore, Maryland as well. I practice law. I do the real estate. I also own real estate properties. And of course, I do the speaking and the writing.
Right. And is the Miami real estate market recovering at all?
Yes.
Really?
The entire South Florida market is on fire right now. It's amazing what's happening.
Because the last I heard maybe a year ago that there were 100,000, and I just couldn't believe it, but it was from a good source. 100,000 two-bedroom, two-bath condos in Miami for sale.
That may have been true, but I'll tell you what, in the last year, it's amazing what has happened. There's less inventory now. They've started all the places where you saw all the cranes and everything has just kind of stopped, and all the building has stopped. It's now resumed again. Things are looking really, really good in the South Florida market. And that's all over South Florida now, especially in Miami. A lot of foreign money is coming in as well. Yeah, it's hopping right now.
And your title company, you started that company yourself?
So my partner started the company, actually. I joined him about a year after, and we've been doing this for about 12, 13 years now, and it's going great.
So when you meet a new person on an airplane, what do you tell them? Do you say, I'm a real estate investor, or I'm an author, or I'm a speaker, or I'm an attorney? What's the one word that you describe yourself as first?
That's a very good question, Jim.
Human being?
I wish I had an answer to that. Definitely a person, because that's what it comes down to. I'm just a guy just trying to do the best he can, and so is everybody else, and that's why guy, gal, and that's why I tend to be able to get along with everyone, no matter where they're from, what they do. It's just a sense of, hey, we're all in this together.
Yep. I find that emotional intelligence is the hardest thing to run across, but the most valuable asset that there is. You agree?
I could not agree with you more, Jim. I think that you hit it right on the head. I think it's very important. I think the way you get along with people, the way you come across to people, is going to determine almost everything about your life. It really is. It's going to determine your level of happiness more so than your regular book smart intelligence or anything else, physical appearance or anything. If you look at the people who seem to really be happy in life, the people who are successful, you see that they get along with people very well. They have a certain charismatic personality where people want to be around them. They're positive. They care about others, and I think you see that all across the board with successful people who are living good, happy, productive, fulfilling lives.
I agree. And so if you were to define the 2 or 3 characteristics of emotional intelligence, does that mean not being an explosive temper personality, laughing things off? What does it mean to be emotionally intelligent to you? Not being a liar? What does it mean to you?
Yeah. Well, integrity is first and foremost. I think honesty is always the best policy. I think that it's really hard to be able to look yourself in the mirror or sleep at night if you know that you've been dishonest. So that goes without saying. I take that very, very seriously. That's in life. That's in business. That's with friends, family.
Yeah, again, you're not a very good lawyer. I don't understand how you ever were a lawyer. You're just not talking like one. I know what a lawyer sounds like, and you're not talking like one. So, anyway.
Well, the good news for me is that as the owner of the title company, there's not conflict. It's more we're working. We work together with lenders and realtors to make sure that our clients, our borrowers, our buyers, our sellers are happy at the end of the day with their purchase of a house or their refinance of a mortgage. So I'm not in a courtroom, battling it out with another attorney all day. And so maybe that's why I'm a little bit of a happier guy than maybe some other attorneys are.
I think
I don't
maybe
know.
so. I think maybe
Yeah,
so. Yeah. Yeah. Do you see the nationwide housing market starting to recover?
I do. I do. We're seeing evidence of that everywhere. I mean, the rates have gone up a little bit, so certainly refinancing right now is slowed down. But as far as purchases go, it does seem like people are buying houses. You see less of foreclosure starts at this point. I think the recovery is underway with the housing. It's going to be slow because what happens is when rates go up a little bit, as they have, houses become a little less affordable. So what's going to happen now is the actual prices have been going up. So that's going to start getting a little bit more steady now. But it's still, things are moving. And to go back to the South Florida market, I mean, I'm seeing evidence of that every day. People are putting in offers on houses, and they're not realizing that if they wait a day or two, that house is gone. So things are moving pretty fast now.
Huh.
And I'm hearing that across the board. And we, of course, deal with real estate all over the country. So,
Right.
yeah, things are looking good.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I hope that some of the industries start to recover, and that we get this economy going again. We only have about 30 seconds left. Tali, what else do we need to talk about?
Jim, I think that's it. You've done an amazing job with your show. I really appreciate what you're doing for everyone, and I really appreciate you having me on so that I can share my ideas and my thoughts with everyone. I've got nothing else to say other than thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking with you again in the very near future, Jim.
Well, likewise, the next time you publish a book or something, we would love to have you on. How can people get in contact with you other than buying the book on Amazon? What is the best way for them to get in touch with you, hire you as an attorney, hire you as a speaker? Or how should people find out more about you?
Sure, Jim. Well, my website is taliraphaely.com. It's T as in Tom, A-L-I, and Raphaely is R-A-P as in Paul, Haely. That's Y as in yes, .com. My title company is Armor, A-R-M as in Mike, O-U-R, titlecompany.com. My email address, they could just send me an email at Tali, T-A-L-I, at taliraphaely.com.
Fantastic. I appreciate it so much. And you have been fascinating. And I really do appreciate you being a good guest and letting me tease you about being a lawyer. So you are an emotionally intelligent person, Tali.
Thank you, Jim. I think you are as well. I appreciate it.
Well, you have no idea. You have no idea about my secret identity. So anyway, thank you for your time, Tali Raphaely. And we will be right back with more School for Startups Radio in just a second.